Hey everybody, Mark with North Star. Finally getting to shoot a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time. This is going through today. We're going to do a high altitude flight. So the goal is, I think I'm going to go to try to go to 25,000. Might go to 23. We'll see what the weather and the winds look like. I'm taking off from Duluth and heading back to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So I should get a pretty strong tailwind, which is one of the great advantages of having a turbo aircraft. So we're going to go up in the flight levels, and you guys will get to see what that's all about. But I'm also going to take you through all the oxygen equipment and kind of give you an overview of how everything works, how to connect things, what to look for. Keep in mind, this does not supplement actually going in the plane with an instructor and doing this. I don't recommend watching the video and then going up in the flight levels. 18,000 feet, you get 20 to 30 minutes of useful consciousness with that oxygen. At 25,000, it can be 2 to 3 minutes of useful consciousness. So you really need to be comfortable with the equipment, be comfortable with the plane, be comfortable with the oxygen, the emergencies associated with it. So some of that stuff we won't go into in this video, but definitely get with an instructor if you're planning on going up to high altitude, or if you own a turbo and you want to, even if you want to go up in the teens and be on oxygen. It's not an FAA requirement that you learn how to use it, but it's definitely a very good guideline, especially when you're going in the flight levels. I recommend nobody goes in the flight levels unless you've had specific training to do that, because the time period that you have for useful consciousness drops so much. So being that I'm by myself today, I'm going to be very, very cautious, using the pulse oximeter a lot, keeping track of what's going on. I've had high altitude training in the oxygen chamber. University of North Dakota has an oxygen chamber, so we actually got to go in it, experience what it was like to get hypoxia, go back on the oxygen, rapid decompressions, all those type of things. So if you ever get the chance to do that, I believe there's a facility in South Carolina. I know University of North Dakota has one in Grand Forks. I think there's one in Virginia as well. Those two are both military or government owned. But if you ever get the opportunity to do a high altitude course and get in the oxygen chamber, even if you don't own a turbo, it teaches you a lot about how oxygen affects you. So some basic parameters. In the daytime, I don't like being above 10,000 feet unless I'm on O2. It's just, especially if it's a 3 or 4 hour flight, I'll start to get headaches, and it's just not as comfortable. If you're on O2, it's a lot more comfortable with a flight. At night, above 8,000 feet, 6 to 8,000, you'll have different recommendations, but definitely above 8,000, you're going to see that it's going to help your night vision, your acuity, and it just makes the flight a lot more comfortable. So definitely, if you've got oxygen, it's about $70 most places to refill the tank when it runs empty. You've got hours and hours, probably 15 hours of oxygen if you're by yourself. So definitely take advantage of it if you have the system installed. So I'm going to take you through some of the equipment here. And show you how everything kind of connects, how we connect with the airplane, what we use when, and after that we'll go and we'll do some pre-flight, and we'll get ready to do our high altitude flight. So, all right. So the first thing I'll take you through is a cannula. So the cannula we can use up to 18,000 feet. So it's pretty simple setup. It just goes in your nose. There's different variations of this, but this is the standard one that everybody uses. That comes, if you buy it from the Cirrus store, or if you buy a Cirrus, this is the one that's going to come with it. There are some different things you can get, but this is kind of the standard, so we'll just talk about this one for today. Pretty simple how you put it on. As you see, you slide the little collar, it goes over your head, in your nose, and then you slide the collar down. Now what I typically do is I'll actually put it on over my headset. And the reason for that is it's just more comfortable. So I'll actually put it on like this and snug it down like that, because it's actually more comfortable if you do this, and it's not as tight on your face. So that's typically how I'll wear the cannula. With the cannula, when you get it out of the box, it's going to be set up like this. So what you're going to need to do is get the regulator, and it's a pretty simple, just a male-female connection. You just plug them in and you're good there. This metal piece here will plug in. If you've got a portable oxygen, the connection is going to be the same. Here it's up in the ceiling, and you just push it and it clicks. So you push it right in, it clicks, you push it, it disconnects. So what you always want to do before you go on a flight we're going to require oxygen is test the system out on the ground. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the mask. Even though I don't need the mask until 18,000 feet, I can use the cannula at 18. I'm going to be going in the flight levels. So at 10,000 feet, I'm going to go ahead and don my mask, and I'm going to use the mask all the way up from 10,000 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and get the mask hooked up. Now you want to make sure that everything's working before you take off. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the pieces here. And I'm going to plug this in the ceiling. And it doesn't matter which hole you put it in. You can put it, there's 5 holes up there, you can put it in any of them. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to test the regulator. So it's a little ball in here. And I'm just going to flip the oxygen switch to on. And when you do that, you're going to hear a click in the rear of the plane. That's actually opening the valve. So you have to have battery power on to open the valve and to close the valve. But once it's open, it'll stay open. So make sure if you're getting out of the airplane, you turn the oxygen off and then turn the battery off. If you do it the other way, it's not actually going to do anything, and you'll bleed all your oxygen out of the system. So I'll go ahead and flip on the battery, turn the oxygen system on. So I have the fault light is out, and I have all green lights, so we've got full oxygen. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the battery off now. And we're going to see that the oxygen will still flow. So as I turn this, you can see the ball, hopefully you can see the ball, it's going up and down. So the oxy side is for oxygen saving cannulas. The standard side is for standard cannulas and standard masks. So we're going to use these numbers only as reference. What you're going to learn when you do oxygen training, everybody has a different requirement depending on their physiology. So definitely it's just kind of a starting point. So if I'm going to 25,000, usually I'm going to set it, up in the flight levels even when I'm at 10, just so I don't forget. And then from there, as soon as I get in the flight levels, I'm going to start taking pulse ox readings to make sure I want to stay above 90%. So we're just going to set this. We see the balls moving. Everything's good there. And you can actually hear it in the mask. You can hear it flowing. Okay, so I hear it flowing in the mask. So we're good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the battery on, shut the tank. I heard it click. All right, so that stuff's set up. So with the mask, you got another thing you have to deal with, and you actually have a mic plug-in. So there's a microphone in the mask itself. The microphone's actually where your nose is. Not sure what the design thought was behind that, but it's really inconvenient. But what I actually do with the mic, you're gonna have trouble with it triggering. What I typically do is I'll wear the mask just down on my face a little bit. Instead of wearing it like this, your mouth is right here, and the mic's actually up here. What I actually do is I'll slide it down just a little bit, so my lips are kind of against the sponge. I still get a good seal, but I don't have to worry about not being able to pick you up on the microphone. So I'm just going to show you how I don this. So I've already adjusted this. This goes on the crown of your head. So as you can see, I flipped my microphone up on my headset because I don't need that. We've got the external microphone. One key to remember with this microphone, if you plug it in, if you've got the single plug-in Bose headset, like this, the ship-powered Bose headset, I like to then plug this in a different slot. Because what you're going to get if you have your microphone and this plugged in, you basically have 2 microphones and you can get some feedback. So what I do is I plug this into my microphone so I can still use my push-to-talk switch up here on the left side, but I'm going to plug my headset into one of the rear plugs for the A&R plug, and just make sure you've got your audio panel set up to be able to hear from the rear, but that way you don't get interference over the mic. It's just one of those things. Sometimes you'll get it, sometimes you don't, but it's an easy thing to avoid. So and I'll do that at 10,000. I'll just go ahead and switch the plugs, and you're good to go there. Just make sure you don't do it beforehand because your push to talk won't work. All right, so that's the basic oxygen equipment. So now what I'm going to show you is the pulse oximeter and how to use it, what to look for on the readings. So it's pretty simple. This is the one that comes in the kit. There's tons of different ones of these. It's a medical device. You can buy them online at tons of different places. So this is just the standard one that we have. I've got a different one at home, but they're all pretty similar. Just press the on button. You're going to see that it gives you SpO2, and it also gives you your heart rate. So you're going to see your heart rate at higher altitude is going to be elevated a little bit. It's pretty standard. All right, so all you do is put your finger in, and it's going to give you your pulse ox level and your heart rate. So right now I'm at 97 and 100. I'm a little excited right now. I'm getting to go fly a brand new airplane, but yeah. So you want to keep your goal is to keep your blood oxygen above 90%. That's kind of a standard. You'll hear different numbers. That's kind of a good standard benchmark to stay above. Some people will say even as high as 95. With the cannula, to ensure you do that, make sure if you're talking a lot, like instructing, make sure you take the time to breathe through your nose, because if you're talking through your mouth, you're not getting that oxygen. With the mask, it's really, really easy to keep your oxygen up, you know, in the upper 90s. So it's not too big of a deal there. So that's the basic oxygen setup, how everything works. So we've pre-flied the oxygen system. We know everything is working. And what we're going to do next is go file, look at the weather, pick our altitude based on, you know, if we're going to be above the clouds, we're going to pick our altitude based on what the winds are doing. If I'm flying solo, typically I'm not going to go up to 23 or 25. I'm doing this for a training video, but I'm going to be very, very cognizant of my blood oxygen level. And if I do have an emergency, I'm going to use the autopilot to descend me. I'm going to set an altitude, you know, say 10 or 12,000 feet, especially since I'm going east, I can set 10,000 feet. And I'm going to set the autopilot to take me down, just in case I do lose consciousness on the way down. Say I lost my oxygen at 25,000 feet. Even 1,000 foot per minute, you know, it takes you a while to get down. So keep that in mind as you're doing it, and be safe. Make sure you get instruction on this. But yeah, the next time you see me, we're going to be gearing up and getting ready to go in the flight levels, and we'll do some oxygen stuff, kind of show you the system. You'll get to hear what I sound like with the mask on, things like that, and we'll check the system out. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you in a little bit.
All right, guys, we're climbing up. We're currently at 6,500 feet. So I'm going to don my oxygen mask at 10,000. They've only cleared me up to 12 right now. What I'm going to do now is just kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at while we're going to 25,000 on this flight. So this is the winds aloft right here, and currently that's set at 12,000. So we're going to look at the different winds aloft here and get an idea of what it's going to look like for us. You can see here, not much tailwind here, and then down below Chicago, we're going to get a bunch. So I'm going to go to 15,000. You can see it's getting up to 50, 60 knots. And let's look at 18,000. Pretty similar, 21,000. Pretty similar, 24,000. You can see we're getting 65. There's 100. So we got, you know, the single bar is 10 knots, the half bar is 5 knots, and the flag is 50 knots. So you can see we're going to get a pretty big advantage by going up high. So that's why we're going to 25 today. And I was going to do a Lena Peak, but I think we're going to have enough tailwind that we won't really need to worry about fuel. It's an about 860 nautical mile flight today. But with that big tailwind, it's it's just going to be, it'll be under 4 hours probably. So, all right, we'll chat with you here in just a second when I get to 10,000, and we'll get our oxygen gear on and get ready to roll. All right, so we just got our clearance to go up to flight level 230. The only thing we need to remember at 180, we need to go 29 or 9 or 2, and we just do that by pressing on the barrow. So we're coming up on 10,000, so I'm going to get ready and put my oxygen stuff on, then I'll get back with you guys here in just a second when I get it on. All right, guys, so we are currently climbing through 11,000 feet, and going up to 230. I just donned my mask, and I'm going to go ahead and set it for the altitude that I'm going to go up to right now is 23,000. So I'm just going to turn this, hopefully you can see it. I'm just setting the ball so up to 23. When you tilt this, the ball's going to go up the top, but it won't block the flow. So if you tilt this down, the ball goes up. It looks like it gets stuck, but it's not going to tilt. It's not going to block the flow on you, so you don't have to worry about that. But anytime you do set it, always set it by standing it up straight. And if the ball does get stuck, you can just turn it down a little bit, and then you can move it back up, just like that. So, and I also have my pulse ox handy because I'm going to need this as I'm going up. As I come in the flight levels, I'm going to make sure to check my pulse ox. Make sure everything looks good, and keep a close eye on that because I'm going to be in the flight levels. I don't have anybody else to watch me, so I'm going to be looking for signs of cyanosis, blue fingertips. If I start getting lightheaded, for me, one of the things I get when I start getting hypoxic is my chest starts to get tight, like I kind of get anxious. So that's one of the cues. Everybody has a different cue, so that's why it's so important to go and do the high altitude training. Everybody has a different cue, but that's just kind of what my cue is. But, you know, keep an eye on yourself. If you're having trouble starting to put numbers in, things like that, stuff to look out for because you need to notice early, especially 25,000 feet. Like I said, you know, 3 to 5 minutes useful consciousness. So you really have to know what you're looking for. And that's why that training is so important. So, all right, guys, I'm going to kick off here for a little bit. I'll be back on when we climb through 18,000 feet. And we'll see what the wind's doing for us and what it's looking like once we get up to altitude for our time and route. All right, guys, so we're just coming up on flight level 180. You can see we're just getting ready to cross through. And you can see I'm set up at 120. It's really cold outside right now, so you can see my CHTs are 370. EGTs are really low, so I'm running full power at 120. One thing I love about the T, we're still climbing 900 feet a second, or 900 feet a minute. 900 feet a second would be great. There's 180, so I'm going to go ahead and press the barrow. It's going to set it to standard barrow. And I'll set my backup as well. All right. So there we go. You can see right now we're saying minus 97 gallons. That's just because we're running 37 gallons an hour right now. We're truing at 157. We're indicating 120. So you're going to see a big variance there as you go up higher, and you're indicated in your true airspeed. So we'll talk more about that once we get up to 25,000. See, our ground speed right now is 173. So I'm climbing at 1,000 feet a minute, doing 173 over the ground. And right now I only have a 14 knot tailwind. All right, so we're just coming through flight level 200. I'm just going to do a pulse ox check and see how everything's looking. So right now I'm at 92. One thing you do want to check as well and be very cognizant of is where your line is running. So it's coming straight down. Make sure you don't have your line caught under the armrest. Pinching the line is the same as unhooking it. So make sure that you're cognizant of where the line's at, where the connections are at. So, you know, it can get kind of messy when you've got a couple people in here on mash, but just be really aware of where your lines are at. Make sure you're checking not only pulse ox, but make sure you're checking connections as well. All right, so we're coming up on flight level 250. You just heard the ding in the background, 200 feet to go. I'm going to go check my pulse ox.
Then for Sunwing 678. Sunwing 678, go ahead.
All right, so we're at 98.
We are having for 37.
So looking good there. I did up my oxygen flow just a little bit. We'll check connections.
Sunwing 678, no problem.
Connections are looking good. All green lights down there. Everything's looking good there. We're leveling out.
37, thank you.
You can see we're truing at 182 now. We're just starting to level out and speed up. Ground speed's 200. We got a 17 knot tailwind. We're not supposed to get the big tailwind until we get below Chicago. All right, so I just want to show you guys a cool system, or a cool thing on the system here. Perspective system. So it's asking me, are you alert? I haven't touched any of the keys in a couple minutes, so hit the advisory. As long as you touch any key, then it'll go away. It's going to give you 2 of those warnings. If you don't respond, then it's going to start to descend the aircraft. So that's just a safety feature. If you did get hypoxic and passed out, the aircraft would start descending itself. So it's going to give you that. You just hit a key. Typically, if you're at 18,000 feet, it's a longer duration, so you're going to hit a key in between. But when you're at 25,000 feet, it's just a couple minutes. So you're going to see that more often. You know, not going to be talking to ATC as much. So we look. All right, so we got 98 on the blood oxygen, so that looks good. And all our connections look good. We got 1,600 psi. Once I get down to 800, which would be 2 green lights, then I would start to descend down into the low teens. You know, you don't want to be risking it getting low on oxygen up here. So 800 is my minimum. Once I hit 800, I'm starting to come down. You know, if I'm up here, if I'm at 12,000 feet, not a big deal. If you're at 25,000 feet, you know, you don't want to run the oxygen very low. So just a safety thing. So right now, I had to throttle back because our oil temperature was getting so high. You know, we're going really fast. However, the air is really, really thin, so you don't get good cooling up here typically. So I had to throttle back a little bit, and currently we're only at 65% power. Truing at 181, doing 195 over the ground, indicating 120. All right, so this time we've got the RU alert annunciator up. This time I'm not going to press a button though. Look what, so it comes up, says Hypoxia alert. It's waiting on me to push. That's my second warning. It's waiting on me to push a button or give it some indication that I'm alert. So you can see it's kicked in auto descent mode. It's giving me an annunciator telling me what's going on. All right, so reset to 14,000 feet, and it's starting to descend. I'm just going to disconnect the autopilot here so we don't bust our altitude. But you can see it automatically started to descend to 14,000 feet. So it gives you lots of warning, and then it'll automatically start taking you down if you do have issues. So just a fantastic system. It's you know, as far as safety is concerned, it's really, you know, it's a necessity when you're operating at this altitude, especially single pilot. All right, so you can see we finally turned the corner over by Chicago, just south of Chicago. We got 482 nautical miles to go and just under 2 hours. Ground speed is 250 knots, true speed's 197. I've been able to bump the throttle up just a little bit, but we got a 50 knot tailwind right now. So you're going to get with high altitude flying is you're going to get more arrival and departure procedures, typically arrival procedures. So we're going into Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we just got the Brook 3 arrival into Winston-Salem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and show you how to actually put that in. So what I need to do now is put the arrival procedure in. So I'm going to hit procedure, select arrival, Brook 3. It's going to say, okay, what transition do you want? And I want Golf Zulu Golf, and I'm going to load it. And you can see it starts taking me direct to Golf Zulu Golf. And I put the fix in there initially, that way I'm going to the first fix while I'm getting all this other stuff loaded in. So you can see it gets you going direct there, and then under destination. So it just puts all the fixes in for you. So pretty straightforward. It's kind of like loading an approach, but you're going to get it more often when you're operating at a higher altitude.
I hope you guys enjoyed the auction video. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, so hopefully it was helpful. Here's kind of the basic setup of the built auction system in the Cirrus. The tank is actually all the way back in the tail. But yeah, just make sure you guys get, you know, take the time to go get proper training. You know, with the CSIP, somebody that's familiar with flying at high altitude, not necessarily in pressurized aircraft, but on auction. And once again, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate everybody watching my channel, and make sure to visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/NorthstarAero. Fly safe.